Well, since NISA filed that report, France has apologized for denying flyover rights for President Morales' plane. With more on how Latin American governments are reacting to these reports, the bugging of the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and the alleged refusal of European countries to allow the Bolivian president to cross in their airspace, I'm joined by Eric Farnsworth, Vice President of the Council of the Americas. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Eric, does Bolivia's president and the other South American leaders backing him have the right to be angry?
Well, they have the right to be angry, certainly, but you wonder how much of this is true anger and how much is manufactured for domestic consumption. There's a joke in Latin America that's been for many years that when things aren't going well in your country, you go and throw stones at the U.S. Embassy. And the idea there is that it's a way to divert attention sometimes about some of the things that are going on in your own country, to paint the narrative that some of the things are the responsibility of outsiders, whether it's the United States or there's a very long and heated colonial past, obviously, with Latin America that has to do with Europe. So these are deep-seated issues. They're historic, they're long-standing, and frankly, it touches a real nerve in Latin America.
But couldn't they make the argument that, this would never happen to the president of Russia's plane or Barack Obama's airplane or anyone else in the EU? They would not be stopped.
Well, they can make the argument. It's a little bit tough to prove a counter-negative. In other words, it's tough to prove that. We don't really know. But I do think that these are treaty commitments in some ways with some of the countries that would have the responsibility under international law to cooperate with the United States. Asylum has not been given to Edward Snowden. He's requested it, but it's not been provided. And frankly, you have to be in a country in order for that country to offer asylum or on their diplomatic territory or what have you. And that hasn't occurred either. So a lot of this seems to be manufactured, and it seems to be a way to build regional solidarity yet again against what many Latin Americans would consider a colonial power structure.
So when you have Bolivia's president and you have Venezuela's president basically saying in recent days in Russia that they would give Snowden asylum, is that all talk too, or do you think he actually still has a chance of going to those countries?
Well, he's got a chance of going there, but the reality is it's going to be tough to physically get into those countries, and unless he can get into those countries, you can't give him asylum. You can't provide asylum when he's in somebody else's country, and that's the whole point of why this Bolivia plane incident came to be, because there was a suspicion that Snowden was actually on the president of Bolivia's plane, and that this plane was actually carrying him to Bolivia so that he could receive asylum from the Bolivian government. Now, that proved not to be the case, but you can see how at least some of the confusion would occur.
But is that because that's pretty much the only way he would be able to get there, is on a president's airplane? Because what other choice does he have?
Well, that's a really good question. He doesn't have a whole lot of choices. His window is narrowing. His choices are narrowing. Having said that, though, it would be a pretty egregious, not attack, that's the wrong word, but an egregious vote of displeasure at the United States for the president of a country to give a wanted fugitive of the United States a ride to his country on his own presidential plane. That would be an extraordinary statement, and I think, frankly, the United States would be right to be upset by that.
Do you anticipate any political or diplomatic fallout as a result of what happened with this airplane incident?
Well, clearly we have high-level diplomatic communications ongoing now. You just reported in terms of the French apology, and Latin American leaders are going to be getting together tomorrow in Peru at the foreign ministers level, and also in Bolivia. Some of the leaders of Latin America will be getting together to discuss this. But the question is, as a pragmatic issue, what can they actually do? They can express displeasure, they can call for apologies, they can call for solidarity against people who are attacking their dignity. But at the end of the day, they don't have a whole lot of cards to play. So I think this will pass, but it's another issue in a long line of perceived slights that Latin Americans have against North Americans and Europeans, and it will continue to feed that narrative of being a region that is perennially underappreciated and where their dignity has not been duly respected by others around the world.
One word to answer. If Snowden was going to go somewhere in Latin America, where would it be at this point?
One word answer is tough, but the choices are probably Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Cuba. Those are the most likely choices.
All right. Eric Farnsworth, as always, we appreciate you being here on the show. Thanks for joining us.